Good morning, boys and girls. We are on to 1.3 of this book today. So I'm going to do an example that looks kind of like problem 1.3 and go through some of the questions. I pre-wrote all this up here, so if I were you, I would pause this after I move my big fat head away from the screen so you can read everything, and copy this down and then follow along with the lesson so you can understand exactly what's going on. Again, today is just reinforcing what we learned. I'm going to go over one concept I taught briefly on Monday, which you'll see in today's work, on tonight's homework, and definitely on tomorrow's quiz. So pay attention, pause, and copy down some notes. So what's going on here? So this is an example. If I got a fixed perimeter of 80 meters, okay, I want you guys to find the width in terms of L. And just so you guys know, we've been doing this already. We've been doing this, and now I'm being a little more explicit about it. So in terms of L means I want to rewrite my width showing using the L variable. Thank you, Ava. Give me 1 second, okay? So what I did here is I took the perimeter equation, P equals 2L plus 2W, rewrote what I know. I know that my perimeter is 80. And then I rewrote this. Now I'm solving for, I'm getting the L to the left side of the equation to solve this for the, Ava, please give me privacy, please. Thank you. Subtract 12 from both sides, divide both sides by 2. My W is equal to 40 minus L. So I have effectively written this in terms of L, okay? Because that's all that I'm showing. That's what it means by in terms of. Now, I also want you guys to go over here. Give me 1 second. My apologies. So, our area, which we know is length times width, is expressed like this: L times 40 minus L, or opposite of L squared plus 40L. I was purposeful in saying opposite of L squared because you'll see why in a second. So I created a table to make a graph of my parabola, of my quadratic, which is a parabola. And I was purposeful in just going by fives. I mean, I need you guys to use a little math common sense on this and know that if you're going to go by ones, you're going to be doing a lot of work for no reason, because all we're trying to get is the desired shape. I went by fives. I could have gone by twos. Still would have been a lot of work, so I just chose to go by fives, and I ended up getting the exact shape of the graph that I need. That's all the point of this is. So the reason I said opposite of this, because if I read this as negative L squared, you guys are going to put this in as negative 5 squared, which is 25, plus 40 times 5, which is 200. So if you think that way, you're going to get 425, which is not right, because over here, if my L is 5, 40 minus 5 is 35, 35 times 5 is 175. So how can I get two different answers from the exact same equation? It's how you read this. This is not in parentheses, so therefore you must read this as the opposite of L squared. Trust me, going forward on this, you have to know that, what the difference is. If this was in parentheses, then you can read this as negative L squared. But because it's not in parentheses, you must interpret it as opposite of L squared. All right? So, doing all the math, I used this equation. I did all the math. I found all these answers, and I found symmetry in my answers. I got a maximum, and then it starts to go back down like it's supposed to. There's the graph. There's a lot of leading questions that ask you guys questions on 1.3. Read those questions. Come see me during the Google Meets today for any questions you might have on any particular words in there. I'm going to pause this and do one more example of something you're going to see today, and then we're going to get started. So this looks like an example I went over on Monday, and I'm kind of thinking, I'm sure some of you might have forgotten how to do a question like this because you see it in today's work. So this is fence a 3-sided area using 100 meters of fencing. Find the dimensions. So visualize that, we're fencing an area that's like on a river or a water bank. So there's no need to put a fence on that fourth side because it's already blocked off by a natural barrier. So again, drawing pictures for these types of questions is going to tremendously help you out because it'll help you unravel the thinking that goes on inside this. So if And again, I want to write everything in terms of length or in terms of width because I'm given no specific directions here. So let's just keep writing stuff in terms of L. So if this is L, that means this is L, that means this is W. I know that I have 100 meters of fencing to work with. Well, my perimeter formula is not going to manipulate just a little bit. So we know that my perimeter of this three-sided shape is literally 2L plus W. And I got 100 meters I'm working with. So 100 equals 2L plus W. And I want to write everything in terms of L. So I'm just going to subtract 2L from both sides. And this is just a little less work, which is nice. 100 minus 2L equals W. So now I know this dimension right here can be expressed as 100 minus 2L. Now, I want to find the dimensions using area. Find the dimensions. I should have said that maxes the area. That's what I should have said originally. My apologies. So now that I'm looking at a maximum, I'm trying to find that vertex of this given quadratic parabola. I also know my area is going to be length times 100 minus 2L. So my area can be expressed as negative 2L squared plus 100L. Okay? So now that I got my area formula written, I'm now going to use my knowledge of quadratics, vertex, maximums, all that stuff to do completing the square to find my maximum. Okay? So I got my A equals, I'm going to divide out this negative 2 of these two terms here. So this is negative 2 on the outside. L squared, remember this is minus 50L, okay? Half of this is negative 25. Negative 25 squared is positive 625. So, and then I got to remember I brought in I did this times this, which is a negative 1,250. So that means I bring out a positive 1,250. So my vertex form of this given quadratic is negative 2 on the outside, L minus 25 squared plus 1,250. So my vertex is going to be at positive 25, comma, 1,250. Now, what do these numbers mean? Remember, our X happens to be our length. Our Y happens to be our area. So when our length is 25, which doesn't surprise me, we're going to make a square shape here because if you put this in here, 25, 25, you do 100 minus 50, which is going to be 50. I'm going to get that answer. So that would add up to 100, and it's not a perfect square, but again, it's still going to work out for this situation. But this is the length, this is the area, so we have found our dimensions. So that means if our length is 25, our width is going to be 100 minus 2 times 25, which means our 100 is 100 minus 50, our width is 50. There are your two dimensions to make this area a max. So that's going to get you through today's lessons. I'll see you guys in our Google Hangouts from 10:30 to 11:35. Warning, I'm going to be moving our class time from 10:30 to 11:35 starting next week from, I'm going to start it at 1 o'clock. Per a lot of discussions I had with your parents and with some of you guys, sounds like it'll be a little easier if you guys can spread out the day a little longer. So that will start next week. We have a quiz tomorrow. We'll go from there.